Deep dive interviews with music gear inventors, builders, creators, and tone chasers. The Gear Gab Podcast with Eric Dahl uncovers the behind-the-scenes stories of the music gear that inspires us. And now, here's your host, Eric Dahl.
I'm so thrilled to have on the Gear Gab Podcast a friend of mine for many years. In fact, back when he launched the company, the CFO of Zither Music Company, Tony Meeks, my friend. I mean, Tony is like, it was so funny getting ready for this show and knowing you from the very start of this company and being friends with you. And certainly you've been there for me as well. But then, I got to cover, your early and once again, your evolutions of Zither in different magazines and in different ways, and even use them on the Rock and Review TV show to hold instruments. But it is so good to see you and have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much. What an honor. It really is.
And you are actually in your factory right now, right?
I am. We have moved recently. We're in a 3,000 square foot shop, and the old shop was 8,000 square feet. So I know we've condensed everything down, but here's the beautiful part of it. We're now more efficient. We've had to be, we've been forced to be, and the quality is still right up there, and that's the way we want to keep it.
Well, and before we dig into, the products that Zither makes, which are just incredible, and people don't even know, Tony, all the places they have seen them, and from movies, TV, music stores, you name it. But let's talk about you a little bit first, Tony, to where your background, and I learned some things that I did not know about you until we dug into where, you were actually a child star, for commercials and magazines. You were like a magazine model.
I can't take credit for being a star, but I was in different magazines and catalogs as a kid, modeling clothes. And that's because the proximity in which I lived, we lived in LA, and I did commercials. I was fortunate to do that. And one of the lines that I love is, I told a guy, because I heard this years ago, hey, if you ever need a guy that looks like me, I look like me. And so
what a great line. The thing is, I mean, it does not surprise me though, with you being in the magazines and in commercials, like you said, next door neighbor would just say, hey, I'm doing this thing. I need some kids. Get in the car.
Yeah. And that's what we did too. Yeah. It was the Weezer family, Scott, Terry, and Mark, 3 boys, and myself and my brother. My brother was too young. He wouldn't do it. So we would hop in the station wagon, and the father would drive us to the lot and say, okay, you guys walk this way. Like, oh, okay. And put these clothes on. Oh, okay.
Was it kind of weird at the time though, to like see yourself in like all these catalogs? Cause when you and I were coming up then, everybody lived for when the catalogs came in.
Right.
I mean, because then you would go through with a pencil or an ink pen and put little stars next to everything you liked, but it got kind of wild to get the catalogs and stuff in and go, hey, that's me.
Well, it was a lot of local stuff too that nobody saw out in the real world, So I remember doing Alber's feed store.
Oh my
Okay,
God.
it was a feed store, and that was kind of fun. But yeah, it was all sorts of weird stuff back in the day. But yeah, it was.
Well, and you've had so many different incarnations of your career as well, which I certainly, I knew about when you were, in the medical, side of things, but I didn't know about like Coca-Cola and all that.
Yeah, I went to work part-time at Coke as an accountant, and then they offered me a staff position, and I worked for Coca-Cola, which I really enjoyed. I love Coke, was really a great company. And then I got a call from a headhunter that asked me, hey, would you be interested in entertaining an offer with a medical company? I said, look, I'm really happy at Coke. And then he told me how much I would make my first year. I said, I'm not that happy.
Which is all about, it's all about the business thing. Well, and also though, in your spare time, you'd been a pastor and also a mayor.
I was. Yeah. Those are things that I did.
Yeah. How incredible. Well, I've got to ask you then, because, with Zither, which is where, you and I really connected and have been friends since the beginning. what was the concept behind this with these, what started out as guitar stands, and then evolved into so many other products.
Right.
How did you come up with this idea to launch this back in 2008?
Okay. Well, and again, everything that I've done in my life, I have to owe credit to God because I'm not that smart. God made all of this happen. I just happened to live next door to a family that was in, the entertainment business and all of this other stuff. Those things I did not script. Okay. I'm not a smart guy. In 2008, I decided that I was going to make an instrument that was easy to play for kids because I wanted my kids to play guitar. And so I started making what Bob McNally made, a strum stick. But
Oh yeah.
I did not know of the strum stick until I started making this dulcimer inspired instrument. And then I came across the strum stick. I'm like, oh, somebody's already doing that. And I started making these and selling them. And Toby Keith got one of them, and which was really crazy for me, but I could not scale. And a guy that bought one of my stands said, one of my instruments said, you need a stand for that instrument. I said, I don't want to make a stand. He said, you need to make a stand because it won't fit on any other stand. And so he made one. And I said, well, that's kind of cute. And then I improved it. I give him credit for it, but he was the one that inspired the stand. And then another friend of mine said, dude, you need to grow that stand up for a full-size guitar. That's your business. And I said, I don't want to do that. And then another friend of mine said, Jim Cathcart said, you need to write a book called Whining Your Way to Success because you're a whiner. And I said, you're right, I am. So my attorney friend said, make this thing for a full-size guitar. And I said, well, what do you know? You're an attorney. So I made it for a full-size guitar. And through the inspiration, Eric, of desperation, I made 10 of them and drove to Houston and sold them.
Yep.
And then it just started rolling.
Well, and I remember that story too, Tony, because I remember, you and I talking about that, not long after that time, to where you drove them to Houston, sold 10, and then by the time you got back home, they were like, we're sold out.
Yeah.
It's like they got a call and said, we need more.
We need more. I had not been in Houston an hour, and I was driving back. Now, I did not have gas money to drive back from Houston. I had money to get there. I did not have money to feed myself. I'm living in a warehouse at the time, and I'm behind on my rent, and I'm driving back from Houston because the first guy paid me cash. So I had money for gas and money for lunch. And I'm driving back, and I get a call from the first shop, and they said, hey, are you the guy that sold me the stands? I said, yeah. He said, we're sold out. Can you bring me more? I'm like, okay. And so,
oh my gosh.
Yes. And
I mean, what a blessing. But, it was so interesting to me, though, because you didn't even want to do it. You didn't even want to build these stands. But, what inspired me about you the first time I met you was just enthusiasm. And when you showed these stands to people, the first incarnations, the first wood that you made them with, you were so proud, and it was just amazing to me to where, just like the stand behind you, over your shoulder, to where with Zither stands, it looks like the guitar shouldn't be able to stand swinging free like that. But with your design, with the neck holder and with the curvature of the wood behind, and then the base, and then, and once again, at the NAMM shows, I saw them fully made, but then when you ship them out, it's just ingenious how you package these.
I'm not
where they come in these flat boxes, and it takes you 5 to 10 minutes. I mean, it comes with, the bolts and put in the neck holder, at the top, and it comes with a little bottle of oil so you can keep it oiled up and in good shape.
Okay, well, let me tell you the truth. You want to know the truth?
Please.
Here's the truth. I'm not that smart. I'm seriously not that smart. I took the stand to a box company. I said to this guy at the box company, I want a box for this. And he goes, okay. I said, I want it to ship flat, kind of like that box over there that you're shipping lights in. And he goes, oh, okay, well, we can fix that. And look, the 2 bolts in the bottom of it. Okay. When I meet my wife, Debbie, she knows I am quite a catch. I'm living in a warehouse. I'm washing my clothes in a mop bucket. Okay. And I tell her, hey, I got to go to California. And while I'm in California, I would like you to ship 2 screws with washers to every address I'm going to send you because I sent a pallet to Amazon and forgot to put screws in all 60 stands. She's like, oh, this guy's a genius.
But she married you.
Yeah, she married me. And she said, and look, I'm sober only 10 months when we meet. And she said, I saw the God in you that you love. And I was betting on God in you.
Wow.
And when you have people that can see in you what you can't see in you, that's the people you go with.
Oh my gosh.
You did that in my life.
Yeah. Well, when you and I first met, it's like, and you told me your story, because you were living in the warehouse at the time. And I'm like going, I knew I wanted to be part of the story, a small part, tiny part, to help you to get the word out. And I'm like going, give me a stand and I will cover you in all the magazines I write for.
And bing, 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 I started getting orders because of that. You fed me. Dude, I'm serious. You made my rent of $350 a month. I couldn't make $350 a month.
But but it's like, but you're one of those people, Tony, and you and I have been friends for this long to where it's like, I believed in you, I believed in your product, and I believed in helping get the word out, with the magazines, with Maverick Country at that time also, and with all the other magazines. It's like, it mattered. And I think what a lot of people don't understand is your backstory, because that's what matters also. And certainly mattered to Debbie, your wife, and mattered to me, because all of that, the hard times that you went through and what has brought you to today with such success, it's like, it's all there, but it's because of you and because of your vision also, Tony. And I wanted to bring up that, you started with one guitar stand.
Yes.
And then it just, everything kind of expanded because it's like on all the different woods.
Okay, you want to hear the story?
Please.
I complained about it the whole way. I griped about it the whole time. I'm serious. I'm making these guitar stands and somebody says, hey man, my bass won't fit on that stand. Would you make it for a bass guitar? I'm like, well, a jazz bass will fit on a regular guitar stand. And he goes, well, I got a Rick. It won't fit. I'm like, okay. So I made a bass stand. Somebody else said, hey, you need to make a stand for a cello. I'm like, I don't want to make a cello stand. I don't want to make a cello stand. I made the cello stand. 6 months later, we win Best in Show for the cello stand at NAMM.
I know. I mean, how many NAMM awards did you win?
I know. A year before that, we won Best in Show for the guitar stand.
Right.
And the kid working for me at the time, when we won Best in Show for the cello stand, as soon as we got that award, he looked at me and he said, and you didn't want to build it. I said, you're right. I did not want to build it.
But, but isn't that amazing, how those things happen? Because even when you did it with the iPad holder, and you've done the ukulele holder, and we were talking about, I've got one in my studio here, the headphone holder.
Yes.
And all these different innovations, and even, to your credit, the double neck guitar stand you developed, which is just beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you.
But it's like all of these things. And then I think what impressed me also, Tony, was how you added in incredible woods. Because, what I told you whenever I first saw them, and it's like, because, we're artsy guys.
Yeah.
It's like, they look beautiful as instrument stands sitting there in your studio, in your guitar room, in your music store. But also they're so functional, because no matter how weird your instrument is shaped, the Zither music stand can accommodate it.
Okay, you want to
A
hear?
lot of stands can't do that.
Okay, you want to hear the real story?
Please.
Okay, I'm telling all of it right now. See, okay, you see the back of this stand?
Yeah.
I designed this stand around the guitar that I owned at the time because I sold all my guitars. I designed this around the Ovation.
Oh my gosh.
If it were not for Jim Hennessy and on stage, the music people, there would be no Zither guitar stand.
Oh my gosh. That is
Jim
incredible. I had no idea.
Yes, Jim Hennessy is, I think he was an incredible man, incredible man. And I wanted an ovation when I was a kid. I was gigging, I was playing in a rock band and all of that. And then I got seeing all of these Ovation guitars. I want an Ovation. And I had no idea about Jim Hennessy's story and everything. And then I made this, the first stand I made, I designed it around my Ovation guitar. My Ovation.
So it handled the round back.
Yes, it fits perfectly in there. My daughter, my oldest daughter, Jessica, said, Dad, I want your Ovation guitar. I'm glad I gave it to her because sales were great. I sold everything. I sold all my guns. I sold all my guitars. I sold everything to keep in business. And if I had that guitar, I would have sold it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank goodness she has it. But also it's like, but all those things brought you to the point now, because I wanted to bring up, as the company, evolved from 2008 and, and you started doing different kinds of woods, because, I was telling you, certainly I've been in a lot of studios here in Nashville, and how many studios feature Zither guitar stands because they're aesthetically pleasing. They don't just look functional. They're something more. And I want to talk about too, like down the road where you started etching in, the guitar company names in the bottom way. But how did you end up moving to different kinds of woods?
Okay, that again, the backstory on that was I was looking for, I know, I'm not that smart. You know this.
Yet you are.
No, I'm not. No. I started making the stands out of this African mahogany because I thought it looked cool, which today is still our #1 seller. That's what this guitar's on. And then I thought, well, okay, I need a high, a medium, and a low price because people usually go for the medium price, and the mahogany was my medium price. So then I said, okay, I need walnut, American walnut. So I started buying walnut. And today, walnut is the most expensive wood we buy. And the reason being is every year, just like clockwork, walnut trees produce walnuts. And you never cut down a tree that's paying you money.
No.
So walnut is very expensive. So I would make stands out of walnut. And then I said, okay, what is a less expensive wood that I could sell at a reduced price? And then I said, well, American red oak. So I started making those. So I had a low, medium, and high. Then I went to my wood supplier and I said, hey, what do you guys got that nobody uses a lot that's pretty reasonably priced?
Yeah.
And they said, oh, have you tried Paduke? And I'm like, what's Paduke? And they showed me and I was like, oh, that's beautiful. And they go, hey, we also have Purple Heart. And I'm like, Purple Heart? What's Purple Heart? Yeah, the wood grows purple. I'm like, what is this witchcraft you're telling me? The wood grows purple. And it does. And so I started making Paduke, which is a brilliant orange crimson color, started making Purple Heart, and people love that. And then I said, okay, people like maple too. So I started making American maple. So I've got those species. And it wasn't because I'm smart. It was because I wanted to make something that people wanted, they enjoyed, and that it was sought after. Now, you said that the stands look beautiful.
They do.
Debbie, my wife, is an incredible woman. She left she was a hairstylist, owned salons, and she gave up all of that to work with me at Zither. And I said, okay, I'm going to make you CEO and I'll be CFO. And she said, okay, not a problem. And so Debbie, when we go to guitar shows, Debbie will talk to the guys and she'll say, these, they go, wow, those are great. And she will say, they're wife approved. Well, yes, you can set your guitar in the living room, in the family room, in the den, and leave your guitar out. It doesn't look like the metal lawn furniture that most things look like. No, no slam to them.
No, not at all. But I mean, but that's what, to me, and I know I told you this whenever we first met and started talking about them. Just like, I mean, I think instruments look sexy. They're artistic, they're beautiful, and you make beautiful music with them. But then your stands match that. To have a stand that's like going, wow, that's attractive by itself, and looks like art and furniture instead of just a functional structure. So I think that's what you did different with it.
Yeah. Well, you ask about laser cutting companies' logos on the base of the stand.
Because that started not that long ago.
Right. And we got a call from Taylor. Taylor Guitars called me and said, hey, we saw your stands at Santa Barbara Guitar Bar, which is no longer. It was a bar that sold guitars, and it was a great concept, fantastic. We saw your stands. We want to introduce the V-Brace guitars at NAMM on your stands. I'm like, wow, that's great. Yeah, could you laser cut our logo on the base of the stand? And when you're starting out, you say yes to everything. I said, oh yeah, we can do that, no problem. Right. Then I was like, how are we going to do that? So I reached out to a company that did laser cutting, which we since became friends with these people. And they encouraged us to buy our own laser cutter, which we did. And so we had them cutting the Taylor logo on the bottom. We're shipping them to Taylor, and they're like, yeah, we love these. These are great. We went to NAMM, and of course, and then we had our stands there, and we put them together for Taylor. We were all excited, and it was fantastic. And then other companies saw that and said, would you do the same for us? And we said, oh yeah, we specialize in that.
It's like, once again, something you didn't want to do, Tony. And it's like going, we don't do this. We got to do this. How can we do this? Yeah. And then all of these other brands want it. So I got to brag on you to where, your stands, Zither Music Company stands are everywhere, to where they're featured in TV shows now. The price is right. Let's make a deal.
Yes.
Aquaman. So you got to feed me on this, Tony. How did you end up getting to where major TV shows, national TV shows, and international movies, how did your stands end up in these?
We don't know. Only God. That's what we say. I'm not that smart. I got a D in woodshop. I got a D. My teacher told me, this is not for you. You do not do this. This is not good. And so I did not say, okay, well, yeah, my master marketing plan will be, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that, and then, we'll take over the world. I'm not that smart. I did not know that we were in these movies, in the television shows. I get people call, hey, saw you on Riverdale. What? Yeah, saw you in a Stargirl TV series. I'm like, really? Yeah, we just saw your stands on Aquaman. I'm like, no way. My dad calls me. He's going to be 90 years old in a couple of months. He calls me, yep, saw you again on Price is Right. And then he sends me pictures. He takes his phone and takes a picture of the TV.
Oh my gosh. That is so great though. But we were talking to her, with Jason Momoa, obviously a musician also, and does the movies and his TV shows. But, he uses your stands. Yes. And so that's probably how then he kind of just integrated them into Aquaman.
He did. And we're so ever grateful. We've got so many people that will call us and say, hey, I saw your stand in a museum. I'm like, what? Earl Scruggs instrument is on our stand in a museum. And I'm like, wow, how does this? Only God. And I got to say, look, I am very conscious of where I've been and what my life has been like. And God has given me this gift, and I treasure this. I hold this as a a sacred trust. And the employees that work for us, it's my wife, myself. We have 6 employees. We've had as many as 9. We'd like to have a couple more, but I believe that they're in my care as employees, and I should make this a great experience for them. Do I? Not all the time. I'm difficult to work with. And so, again, it's not because, oh, I used my marketing background and I did this and did that and I read this book and no. I'm always shocked and surprised. Okay, let me tell you this. Have you ever heard of imposter syndrome?
Oh, totally.
Oh my
Totally.
gosh, I've got it bad. When I go to NAMM, the first year I go to NAMM, I'm not going to sell my stands. I'm going there as a guest for a music company, a guitar company that has asked me to be there as an artist to play their guitars and feature their guitars at their booth at NAMM.
Wow.
And the owner says, oh yeah, by the way, bring some of those stands. So I bring the stands. A lady comes up to me, Gail Beacock Music, and she goes, wow, I love your stands. I said, well, thank you. And she said, I'm on the board of NAMM. I said, oh. She said, I want to nominate you for Best in Show. If you're happy selling your little guitar stands in Texas, go ahead. But if you get this award, it will change your life. Now, I'm living in a warehouse. I'm barely feeding myself. She said, I want to know, are you ready? And I said, I'm ready. She said, okay, I'm going to put you forward. Well, let's see what happens.
Oh my
And I
gosh.
tell the guy that I'm in the booth with, I said, hey, I tell him the same story I just told you. He said, you cannot win that award. I said, why not? He said, you're not even a member of NAMM. Well, I'll become one. I said, it doesn't work that way. So I tell Gail the whole story. I'm not a member of NAMM. I'm here as a guest. And she says, that doesn't matter. You have won Best in Show for companies to watch. It's our Rookie of the Year award. I'd only been making the stands 3 months.
Right. And I remember that. I remember that when that came out, and it was like going, and the pictures of you and your stands were everywhere.
Yes. And what happened, Eric, is when I got that award, I took that award underneath my arm and I ran out of NAMM. I did. I went out and got a taxi because there was no Uber. I got a taxi and went straight to the airport and said, they're not taking this away from me now.
And you didn't even have a booth.
No, I was a guest.
You weren't a member. You came as a guest. You didn't have a booth. And you brought what, 3 stands with you?
I brought 4. I brought my brand new bass stand.
Yeah.
And 2 guitar stands and a mandolin stand. I made one for a mandolin ukulele. So I only had 4 stands.
Oh my
That
God.
was it.
How amazing is that? But then you look at
God. Only God.
totally, but you look at where you are all these years later. And you know, so frequently when I check in with you every few months and you're like going, well, I'm back ordered by this many right now.
Yes, I am.
And it's like, but what a blessing of a problem to have, Tom.
It's depressing. It really is, because I'm anxious and depressed about it because I want people happy with our product. I want them to have it. I don't want them waiting. You know, I really want to, get it out there without sacrificing the quality.
Definitely.
So,
Well, and that's the thing too, it's simplistic and it's also genius, because what the genius of it is the way the neck yoke fits in the top and pivots to where, it can move just like you showed. Yeah. To where it just pivots easily right there. And it's like, it's just, the design is so spot on, but then also with the curvature of the long piece coming down.
yeah, Jim Hennessy innovation. Okay.
Yeah. And your base, and then the base of it counteracts. It's like you're defying gravity.
Yeah, I'm not that smart. That was an unintended. I'm telling you, that was an unintended consequence. I made the stand not knowing that this would be what would happen. And somebody bumped it and then sent me a video and said, your stands are amazing because they won't fall over. They're like weebles wobble, but they.
And then you put a felt piece in the back.
Okay.
So that also, if it does get bumped and goes to the back,
Do you want to know the story of the felt piece?
yeah, I do.
Okay. I go to Fuller's Guitar. I go to Fuller's and I take my stands. They're like the second place I show up in Houston. And I go to Fuller's and I show it to Fuller's. And you know what they said? Not for us. I was like, what? Not for you? Nope. I said, what do you not like about it? He said, I don't like the way the bass swoops down. It's too out there. And this guy, Eric, great guy, he said, and if my J45, if it swings back, it's going to hit. I don't like that. Put something back there like felt or something. The next week, I brought 10 stands with this little felt bumper, showed him, and he goes, what? You changed your design because of something I said? And I said, Eric, if I want somebody to tell me how great it is, I'll go talk to my mother. She'll say, yay, good boy. You went pee-pee in the potty all by yourself. That's excellent. But if I want real feedback, I'll ask people who don't have any dog in the fight.
Right.
And he said, wow, this stand is amazing. I guess I got to buy it now.
That is incredible. What a story.
Yeah.
But it speaks to the evolution, and that's what I was going to bring up too, Tony, to where, one of the things, one of the many things that I've always enjoyed about your stands, to where it feels like a personal relationship. When you get one of your stands for whatever instrument size and with all the different models that you offer, it doesn't feel like you're just buying a product from Zither because, and I mentioned it earlier, I've got bottles of it here in my guitar room of the oil, of the lemon oil that you send, just like you treat a butcher block with, the same thing to take care of your stand.
Yes.
It's like, it feels more personal. It feels like a relationship with you and the company when you get a Zither product.
Well, it is a relationship. And I tell people, we have a 100% happiness guarantee, lifetime guarantee. If you're ever not satisfied with anything that I have made, I do not want you looking at it in your home, and every time you see it, you hate me. I don't want that kind of mojo in my life. So I will buy it back from you regardless of where you bought it. I will give you the full price. I will pay you. I will send you a shipping label. I will make sure that you're 100% happy, because I believe that people who have a great product, they won't shut up about it.
Right.
They can't wait to tell other people about it. It's like, okay, I'm going to tell you, it's like this capo. Okay, I love Kaiser capos. I know Meredith, I know Scott, they're great people. This capo here is an Elliott capo. People have been copying this capo. Scott Elliott owns the company. His dad started it. This is not a cheap capo. It's a $120 capo.
Oh, yeah.
And they're handcrafted, beautiful, and they're just precision. I love it. I won't shut up about it. I tell everybody about it.
But I think that with great music products and great music gear, that's why, a lot of times, as a lot of people will reach out to me and go, hey, what have you got in lately? What are you covering that you're excited about? And it's like, and sometimes it's like the smallest thing, Tony.
Yeah, right.
I got on one of the new iCloud deals. It's where it's a booster and it plugs in, and it's like, oh my gosh. And it's powered by Phantom Power. And it's like, I got excited about that because it's such an innovative product. Yeah. But also, to me, it's always interesting, just like talking with you. It's like, where did the idea come from? Just like with your stands and the innovations. And so, how many different models do you offer now?
We offer 15 different instrument stands, from a ukulele, mandolin, all the way up to a double bass. So I started making the double bass stand. It doesn't hang like this. It sets and leans on the side. You can see it on our website.
Okay.
So I'm a musician and I want to extend my career. And I got to thinking, well, if you play guitar, you play in one band. If you play bass, you play in two. If you play drums, you play in 3 or more bands, okay? Which true. So I got to thinking, okay, I really like that big double bass. I wonder if I could play that. And I wonder how many people play double bass in my area. Turns out, one other guy.
Yeah, not that many.
I thought, I'm going to get a double bass. So I went and met with this guy, and he encouraged me. And so I spent way too much money on this double bass, and I'm playing it and learning the Samandel method and all of this. I'm like, I can extend my career. Because an old guy shredding, kind of creepy. Okay. All right. Unless you're, Jimmy Page, kind of people look at it and go, that's kind of wild. But if you're playing double bass with a fedora and you've got sunglasses, you're in the back. Oh, that guy's cool.
You're cool.
You're cool.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to me. I think I told you, Tony, when I moved, back here to Nashville the second time in 2011, to where it's like, I'd been, living in Vegas, playing guitar on the Vegas Strip and all that for 10 years. But then here in Nashville, everybody plays.
Sure.
So I did the same thing you did. I became a utility player. Right. And so I played a songwriter round this last week, and I played guitar for the songs I was doing. And then backing up everybody else, I was playing Mando guitar.
Yeah.
And so I switched between that and band guitar. And like I said, and when they need a bass player, I'm a bass player.
Yeah. So I play double bass. I've got a weekly gig. I play every Wednesday night at church. I play double bass in we play Southern gospel, bluegrass tunes.
Wow.
And every Wednesday night I'm playing that double bass. And Sunday morning, at the same church, I play lead guitar. And so yeah, that's kind of fun.
It's what a great way to give back. I've always enjoyed playing at church as well, as you know, and I started it in Vegas, to where the pastor at the time came out to see me at a casino gig.
Yeah.
And and we were having a few beverages with the pastor, and he goes, "Hey, I need you to start playing at church." I'm like, I don't know any church songs. He goes, "Same songs, same music, different lyrics." I'm like going, "Okay, I'm good for that." So I kid you not, Tony, the first instrument I played at this church, and they'd never had a guitar in before, was my double neck ovation.
Nice.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And so it's like, and at the time, bless his heart, I can't remember the man's name, but he was the piano and organ player. And he goes, "So bringing in one of those guitar things." I'm like going, "Yeah, they got kind of popular in the 50s and they want to have one in here now." And I mean, now that church in Vegas, Good Samaritan Lutheran, they have all the different services are all fully contemporary Christian. And so it's nice being in the ground floor of that, being the first guitar, and then it's just always a good way to be able to give back playing the music. But I love it that you're doing the double bass, because I really had the itch to buy one again.
Yeah.
Well, it's not an easy instrument to play.
No, it's not. And you can really hurt yourself. You can hurt your hand on it. As a guitar player, you can, do some damage to your hand if you're not careful. One of the things you ask about in your podcast is, where do you think the direction of the music industry is going?
Definitely.
Okay. I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself.
No, not at all. Please.
Okay. Well, I think about this a lot. Instruments are beautiful. They're fantastic. They were meant to be played, not in cases underneath the bed, in the closet, but out and play. Not only in your home, not in your living room, your bedroom, your little studio, but out in public. So I believe, now you can take the big box stores, you can take the big online retailers and all of that. Their interest is, and it's not wrong, they're trying to sell gear.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. My question is, where are we playing these instruments and using this gear? Yeah. So when I was a kid, I played in a band in high school, and we were a part of the musicians union in California, and we would play the VFW Hall, Knights of Columbus.
Oh, yeah.
High school dances. I don't know a high school dance that's hiring a live band for a dance at all.
All DJs.
Yeah. Colleges, universities, we would play. They would have us play during the lunch hour at a high school. Hey, we got a live band today during lunch, and we would set up once. There's no venues like that anymore.
No.
They're gone.
Or the
So-
coffee house gigs. I know you and I both. It's like I played a lot of coffee houses,
Right.
and which was why when I started out as a teenager, I played this little Madder Rose Cafe in downtown Cape Girardeau next to the river, and it's like, and they'd pay me a little money. I'd take in 2 or 3 guitars. I'd play for 4 hours. They'd feed me coffee and fondue and give me a little money.
Correct.
It
Not
was a great
anymore.
gig. No.
So here's what I'm thinking. I'm not a smart guy, but wouldn't it make sense for a mom and pop music store to do something that the other guys cannot do?
Right.
Which would be have an open mic night at the store maybe once a month. You're giving lessons, have these kids have aunts and uncles come out, then have another open mic. You've got Johnny doing his 2 songs. You've got Linda playing piano, doing her 2 songs.
Right.
Get these people out to a local venue
Mm-hmm.
and get live music live again, because
That's a great idea.
we know bars are not hiring musicians.
No.
Most musicians are getting their gigs at churches.
Yeah.
No,
I've been writing for Worship Musician Magazine for 15 or more years now. And yeah, a lot of musicians like you and I, play at churches and everything. And like here in Nashville, for me, I play the songwriter rounds. I played one this past week. The weekend before, I played a charity event for Humane Society. And, so one of the things I'm going to get back to doing, which I started doing in Las Vegas, Tony, as you know, I'm going to start playing at senior centers again.
love that.
Just because for me, it's a good way to give back. Because when my grandma Dahl had to be in an Alzheimer's facility in Las Vegas, and I would go in and see her every day, and then started playing music there, the seniors are so hungry for music and
Absolutely.
entertainment and engagement.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, bless their hearts, are trapped in there and don't even have family that visits them. So if I can get back in and start doing that again, as I used to do with my daughter when she was younger also, I just think it's a great way to give back. Just go in and play a little music for them for an hour.
Yeah.
And I think that now we have to seek out places to play live. And also, just like with that gig I played this week with the songwriter round, it was so much fun just to be able to jam. And, and I played out my new wedding present that my wife got me, my Gibson Dove. And I had my Mando guitar. And one of the ladies came up to me, Tony, and she was a cancer survivor. And she said, "You know what I loved about you?" And I thought, wow, it was my voice and my guitar work. And I was just eating up that fretboard. No, I smiled the whole time I was playing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what she loved. And I was going, that's a good, because I was up there having a good time, Tony.
Yeah. It is a good time.
For the other musicians, and everybody else plays a lot more country, and I'm like the token blues rock guy. And it's like everybody had fun,
Yeah. Well, I'm getting up in age. I'm 67. I'm going to leave all of my instruments one day. They're all going to be somewhere else. I want them to be worn out. I want somebody to look at it and go, "Oh my gosh, this guy played this guitar. This guy played this bass." I want that, feeling. I want my patina all over it when they get it. And I want other people to do the same. I want people to play music live. And on the bottom of every single stand we make, I'll show you, on the bottom of everything that we send out, it has the verse Psalm 33:3.
Wow.
We'll put that on there because I know that if it were not for God's grace, I would not be doing this at all. I believe that God reached down and looked at me and said, "You now do this."
Right.
And I'm grateful. And Psalm 33:3 says, "Sing the Lord a new song.
Right.
Shout for joy." And then my favorite part, play skillfully.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're playing a gig at church, do not bring your B game.
No.
It drives me absolutely nuts when somebody says, "It's just a church gig." Look, dude, it is the Super Bowl of Super Bowls, okay?
Yep.
You're playing for the creator of the universe, and you're leading his people into the throne room, the worship center of God. And you should be playing it like this is the last gig you're ever going to play before you're transported to heaven and play again.
Right.
I love playing music.
You know, and I agree 100%. I've told people this before, Tony, and you know it with me, to where I was playing great money gigs at casinos in Las Vegas during the week. And whenever Pastor Don convinced me to start playing at church, I practiced more
Yeah.
and harder
Yeah.
to play for free at the church
Yeah.
and to support the message than I did for my big paying
Absolutely.
casino gigs, because it mattered more, and I knew it mattered more.
Absolutely. 100%. So when people say, hey, man, don't you miss, touring? Don't you miss going out and playing? I always tell them this: if I never, ever play in another smoky bar that smells like beer and urine, and I have some guy come up to me and go, dude, you rock, I'll be just fine.
Right. And you probably missed the request for Freebird also, because I know that was always my favorite. About, midway through the evening, can you guys play Freebird? It's like, yeah, that's in the fifth set. Yeah, do that in the fifth set. Stick around.
Right. And my standard answer to that was, listen, I'd love to do it. In fact, I will do that song, but I'm kind of forgetful. So what I need you to do is write that down for me. Write that down on $100 bill. Give that to me, and I'll be happy to do it.
Yeah, I mean, those gigs, you earned your money.
Oh my God.
It's like, some of the crazy things, you and I both, with, and like you said, mentioned with touring, but playing all the clubs and casinos and some of the crazy gigs. It's like, yeah, I don't miss that. But also, you and I both are musicians and we love to play.
Yeah.
And I do not feel like myself unless I play a little bit every day. And once again, a testament to Zither, having my instruments out in my guitar room here, if I see them, I play them.
Correct.
If they're in cases, and I'm not knocking anybody that does this, Tony.
Nope.
Some people are like, I leave them in the cases, I keep them all. It's like, and I humidify my room, and I've got, I keep an eye on the humidity level in here over on my amplifier wall. But it's like, if I don't see them, I don't play them.
Correct.
And that's just me.
Me too.
But also it makes me feel better because when I look at them, I want to play them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you got them on, your stands, on this other stands, I'm not worried about them. I'm not worried about if they're going to fall over, if somebody's going to walk in and bump them over. You can tell they're stable. You can tell they're protected. And I think that's the most important part. But when you have them out, then you play them.
Well, we only use string swing cradles. That's it. I mean, they're nitro friendly and made in America. And Travis and the guys at String Swing are incredible people.
Right.
They're the only cradle we've ever used. We've never considered anything else. And it's a great partnership with String Swing. They're wonderful.
Well, I want to bring up also for my partner now, Tony, I mentioned this, to where I am with Acoustic Coffee Company is now the sponsor for Gear Gab. And so, I will be sending you a bag of acoustic coffee for being a guest on the show. And also anybody that is watching or listening to Gear Gab, if you use Gear Gab in the code with your first order, you get 20% off your first coffee order set. And
I can't wait to try it, and I cannot wait.
I know you're a coffee lover like myself, Tony.
I am, and I cannot wait to do shameless self-promotion for acoustic coffee.
That's right. Well, and I got to ask you this, the double bass, I didn't know you did a stand for that. Are you looking at doing any new innovations for this coming year?
Well, if we do, I'll be the one that complains about it and whines about it, but we'll eventually do it. We listen to our customers and what they want. We've made them for a lot of different one-off instruments, that have a big round back. A lot of European instruments. We've done that for them. So.
Yeah, well, and there are so many unique body styles. And once again, like we were talking with double necks and with basses and the extended instruments. And I still like odd shaped instruments sometimes. I mean, like I've got one, a friend of mine built me one of the Jerry Reed Lawmaster guitars with the cutoff thing. And it's like going, and I think that's what's unique and great about the Zither music stands is that no matter what the body shape is, your stand still works.
Yeah, the Explorer, the Flying V, the Firebird, all of those work well.
The only one you're going to have to introduce now is you're going to have to introduce one for headless guitars.
I know. I keep hearing that. Kiesel, all of these guys with headless guitars, Steinberg, all of those guys.
Because, they're coming, and I told you I'm going to be having Ned on the show. It was Ned Steinberger. But, also all these other guitar brands now, especially in Europe, it seems like more there first, like with Strandberg, out of Sweden and some of these companies, to where it seems like the headless instruments have really made a resurgence, Tony.
Well, we have made them for headless guitars. We have sent them out, but again, I'm going to complain about it. I'm going to whine about it. We've done it. It's not that we can't do it. It's the bandwidth of the company. We're so back ordered. To introduce new stuff all the time kind of messes with the process. And
Right.
We're trying to get the product, our stands out with the highest quality.
Well, and you always do. And I was going to bring up too, to where, and I don't want to overstep my boundary on this.
No, go ahead.
But musicians want, like if it's a special gift, if it's a wedding present, if it's a studio, if a music store, they can have it etched with a name in the bass, correct?
We've done that. We've done it with anniversary, with wedding. We've had people say, hey, my husband's got this guitar. He's had it for years. I want you to put the brand name on it and the model number. We've done that. We put, when somebody has passed, a father, a grandfather, this was his guitar. Could you put his name and, etch that in there? We do that also. We're happy, actually honored, because we know this is a cherished instrument. It's going to be in a prominent place, and people will look at it, and we want that. We don't want to take away from the instrument, but we're grateful to be a small part of it.
I think it adds to it. I love it. I love your wife's statement, Debbie's statement, that it's wife approved.
Yes, it is wife.
Because I know somebody like me, it's like going, I have to have guitars and instruments everywhere. I've got 2 in the living room. I've got 2 in my office at the TV studio. I've got, behind this wall, it's like, all these instruments. It's like, and having them on Zither stands reminds me of you and meeting you the first time and becoming friends. But also anybody that comes in, it's like going, they always mention, it's like going, wow, those stands look great. Besides, having my nice, Martins and Gibsons and Taylor and everything hanging on them, everybody always mentions the stands, Tony.
I appreciate that.
That's a testament, because I don't think a lot of, and not knocking them, because we all use them, particularly when you're out on the road or at gigs, that the metal stands, a lot of times are just not as visually appealing.
Well, I have a metal stand, and I use it anytime I'm asked to play in a smoky bar that smells like beer and urine, and I'm afraid somebody's going to knock it over or steal it or something. So, I've got one of those.
Well, and I know that, we won't mention it on the show, but you and I are going to have a special announcement of something we're going to be doing with Zither Music Company for the coming year, but we'll mention that offline. I want to make sure for our viewers, for Gear Gab, and our listeners for the podcast, Tony, for the website, for the social media, for everything involving your instrument stands. I know they're sold at a number of music stores, but they can also buy them direct.
Absolutely. We sell on Amazon. We sell on eBay, Etsy, and our own website. Our website is Zither, ZITHERUSA.com. And my phone number is at the top of every page on the website. My cell phone, if you want to call me, you're more than happy to take your call. And you need to understand that I have one of these flip phones, which I call, and I have one of these also, but this is the phone that I love. I call it my serial killer burner phone. Okay.
It's almost like you're Captain Kirk with the Zither Music,
Yeah.
like,
and when I use it, people go, wow, I've never seen one of those. I'm like, oh yeah, this brand new. It's a new thing. So,
well, and I want to give you a personal thanks as a friend of yours, Tony, for always taking my call, for always texting back, for being supportive. of the magazines I've written for the TV show was Rock and Review, and also for the Gear Gab podcast. We hit it off back, in 2008 and have been friends ever since. Seren, I just want to thank you for your support as well, in the best of times and in the worst of times, Tony.
Right. That's right. And we have no guarantee of tomorrow. And I cherish your friendship, and I'm honored to be a part of your life. And I tell people, if I can ever be of a help to you, let me know, because I believe that we're put on this planet to help one another. And that's what we should be doing. And I'm just so grateful that God has asked me to be a part of this. And I want people to enjoy their life and to enjoy their instruments, because if you play music, you're less likely to be anxious, depressed. You're more likely to enjoy life better and to get the most out of life. And so that's what I really love about what I get to do. Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you what, I love you. I love your products, Tony Meeks of Zither Music Company. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Go to his website, check out all of the great products. There's a stand that'll work for you. And if you're listening to our Gear Gab podcast or watching it on YouTube, be sure and subscribe. And but go and check out Tony Meeks with Zither Music Company and get one of these great stands. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining the Gear Gab Podcast with Eric Dahl. Subscribe to our weekly conversations on your favorite platform. And if you like what you hear, don't forget to leave us a review. Follow us on social media at Gear Gab Podcast. You'll never know who our next guest will be.